Hey everyone, welcome back to Safe Fitness Training. I'm Jonathan Gentry, JG for short. If you are new to high intensity strength training, chances are you are not getting the most out of your workouts. I'm going to explain throughout the course of this video, but before we get started, please hit subscribe. About 75% of the viewers of the channel are actually not subscribed. If you do subscribe, then you will get notified for videos that hopefully will help you out or a loved one. If you have friends, family who are seniors or elderly or have serious injuries and need some help getting started with strength training, you're in the right place. Just hit subscribe, hit like, share my video if there is someone that you know that can benefit from this. So over the years, like I was saying, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that with very new people to high intensity strength training, there will be an assumption that is made that, oh, this is burning, this is hurting my body, I must have reached momentary muscular failure. And the bad news for those of you who were thinking that is that you're gonna need to push a whole lot harder. And what I mean by that is when the burning begins, that is the moment where you're beginning to get all of the benefits out of strength training. On the very first rep on the leg press, our legs should be just barely shaking. If we begin at, say, an 80% of our maximum capacity, that we should end at a 99.9% of full momentary muscular failure. That's what we're going for here. See, normalcy bias is one of those forces that keeps us from progressing, not just in high-intensity strength training, but in life. If I continue to think that things are always going to be the same, that I just have this normalcy bias for things into the future, things will never improve or things will never get worse, we tend to have that as human beings. But that couldn't be further from how things actually work, of course. There's no such thing as stagnation. We're either moving forward or we're moving backward. That's the bottom line. It's really common for people to be able to, in the very beginning of this, let's use the leg press as an example. It's very common for people to be able to push 20 more pounds every single workout for at least a few weeks to a month. That's saying quite a bit. And these progressions are actually fairly typical of high-intensity strength training. It's just not fairly typical from other forms of strength training that I've utilized in the past. So if I had a normalcy bias that I wasn't going to be able to push 20 more pounds, well, I'm not going to set up my weights to be able to push that. But if I was to give it a try and make a mental assumption that I can push the weights that I'm choosing, chances are, of course, that I'm going to be able to do that if it's realistic. Our new normal of being stronger needs to kind of set in for us to be like, oh, wow, I'm that much stronger. That's why we typically see that people can and do double their strength in a very short 6 months. In high-intensity strength training, the very first few workouts are there to teach you the exercises, how to move proficiently with good speed and form, and to breathe through the entire process. But don't be afraid to increase your weight significantly and quickly, as long as you have the proper seat settings and safety procedures in line for everything else. You're going to be fine. You want these weights to move up fairly quickly. I've had a lot of trainees come to this realization all of a sudden and think, oh my God, this is never going to get easier. And of course, that's absolutely true. If we are moving our weights up properly and progressively, then it will never get easier. And when it comes down to it, it will always be a lesson to teach us that we're capable of much more than we thought possible in the past. So back to the topic at hand, perceived intensity versus momentary muscular failure. On the very first session, the very most common thing for people to say at a very low intensity is, oh, this is a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and that's because of that normalcy bias. They're used to perceiving things in the intensity of, this is what I was experiencing. With high intensity training, it actually kicks us in the rear and it forces us to improve at ridiculously fast pace. So if you're thinking that you're hitting maybe a 9 out of 10 intensity, and you're like, oh, okay, this is burning, well, I want you to push even further. Amp that up to a 10 out of 10, amp that up to a 12 out of 10, and what you may find is that your perceived 8 out of 10 intensity may very well be a 5 out of 10 intensity, and that you are capable of way much more than you thought possible. That's the power of high-intensity strength training, and it's a metaphor for our lives, of course. I just want you to all take away from this that momentary muscular failure is simply the point where we're incapable of pushing any further. It's not the point where it burns to make us think we can't push further. It's not the point to where our muscles start shaking. It is the point to where absolutely all force is stopped in our tracks and we cannot move at all. That's our goal. That's where we're going to get the most health benefits, the most myokines flooding our body, and the most hypertrophy or muscle growth that we can possibly get from strength training. If you're consistently pushing yourself to do better, to reach greater heights, to reach that highest intensity of momentary muscular failure, then you are living the metaphor of I can be better, I can grow stronger, and I'm capable of way much more than I thought was even possible. Train hard, train to failure, and I'll see you in the next video.